All right, in this video, I'm going to go over a initial setup for a new property, um, possibly multiple properties in any given case. However, we're going to go ahead and show you how to set up a single property at first, and then a couple screens will actually show you how you can utilize the same setup for multiple properties. So on the screen, we're looking at set up shared configuration parameters for order processing and front desk. So this is ideally the initial screen that you will begin with when you set up your property. So let's look at this where this actually exists, right? So you have these buttons at the bottom, and hopefully you've already seen the navigational video that will kind of give you an overview of how Senium works today and the platform that it's built on and how it actually looks. So in these buttons here, we're going to click on this one here, and this one we call this the back office. You want to look for order processing, reservation processing, and then we want to go to shared global configuration. All right. So now that we're at shared global configuration, this will bring us to the configuration parameters for order processing and front desk. So here, create contact. Local contact creation defaults to update master contact. What that does is anytime in Senium, you have multiple locations where you can update a contact. And what that will do is anytime you update that, maybe you're in reservations or maybe you're in sales and catering, that will flow over to the master contact and they'll update it. So let's say a guest calls, and at that time they say, hey, we need to update our phone number, or maybe their phone number's changed. If you go into the contact and change that contact information, that will update to the master contact. Now, with that being said, once a reservation is created, and let's say, for example, I'm creating a reservation for tonight, and I give the front desk employee my contact information. That may build me a brand new contact. Now, the next time I call, they can just search my contact, and all the information is already there. However, if they create the reservation and then change the contact information, that does not flow over to the master contact. That actually stays in that reservation itself. So they do have to update that master contact when they do have any type of change. What this is for is when you actually create it and update it within the master contact. The next thing we're looking at is open balance check-in, check-out allowed. What this will do, if you click this here, this will allow a check-in with an open balance. If you uncheck it, it will not allow a check-in with an open balance. So for example, if you're taking all payments before checking in, then you would want to leave that unchecked. Usually, we leave this checked as you want to allow a check-in with an open balance. That way their balance can continue to accumulate, and then you could process. And this is allow checkout with an open balance. So this is all property specific. If your property does not allow an open balance to be checked out, then I would highly suggest you uncheck this. A lot of our properties, and in the industry standard today, um, you don't want to allow checkout with an open balance because once you check that reservation out, it's very tedious work to go in and figure out which checkouts have not accepted or taken payment yet. So if you uncheck this, then there's no way of allowing a checkout with an open balance. You have to completely balance that folio and that account before checking them out. Check-in and checkout times. So this is your standard check-in and checkout time. This will flow into the system So if you have your check-in time at 3, checkout time at 12, that's industry standard, but this is just really informational. Auto assign room on check-in. Um, what that will do is that'll allow the room to automatically be assigned just when you check a guest in. So, say you have 1,000 rooms, and you check a guest in, it'll automatically assign them to the rooms or to a room. If you don't want that to be allowed, then you uncheck that, and then the front desk or the reservation agent or employee would have to assign a room number to the reservation. Manage shares. So this is where we talk about multiple properties. So in Cenium, we have the capability of having one system built for multiple properties. So say your company has 4 or 5 properties itself, you're able to take all these policies and all these defaults and trickle them to the multiple properties. And you can look at them all in one view as well. So this basically what this says is restrict shares to maximum occupancy. So what that will do is that will restrict any other property that you share to the maximum occupancy of that property. So for example, if we have one property that has 100 rooms, the next property has 1,000 rooms, then what this will do is this will throttle any of these shared components to the maximum occupancy of that individual property. And this is something that possibly should be defaulted, but we do have the capability of turning that off or on. Automatically apply percentage split on all shares. What this will do is if you have a reservation that has share percentages on it. So, for example, if 2 guests are staying in the same room and one wants to pay, let's just say 50-50 split, and you have that split on the reservation, what automatically apply percentage split on all shares basically says that what we're going to do is we're going to apply, go ahead and automatically split these based on the percentage, and then obviously you can manually modify them in individual reservations. But what this will do is this will flow this all the way throughout all your properties. Date adjuster. What this will do is this will allow you to adjust the amount of hours that pass after night audit or after 12 o'clock. So, for example, and I believe it's industry standard here in the United States to have up until 3 a.m. to be the same business date. And what that'll do is that'll hold an extra 3 hours past 12 a.m. to the same business date. Same goes for late check-in grace hours. So if somebody checks in at, let's say, a walk-in checks in at, or even a reservation at 1 a.m., they're so considered to be checked in at the day before his business date. Default number of key cards. What that will do is if you have the key machine or any type of key controller or through Comptroller, however you're interfaced, or you're going to be interfaced eventually or one day, key cards, number of default key cards. So if each guest or each reservation gets automatically number of 2 or 3 or 4 or 10, then you put that number here. So when a guest is checked in and then gets to the point where the key cards need to be made, then it'll automatically trigger the machine system to create that number of key cards. So this is the default number of key cards. And you can of course create key cards at during individual reservations as well. However, this is just a default. All right, so let's move towards the more complex part of uh, folios and routing. So basically, these routing templates and the folio templates These are just for the shared configuration, so for multiple properties. Now, when we set up each individual property, we have something called a master property setup. We're able to set up default folios for individual properties. Now, if you have multiple properties that utilize the same templates and the same routings, then this setup is very crucial. So basically what this is telling us is the default routing template for just a default reservation will default to the default guest, or all of these are just set up in our test environment. However, if you would like to change this at any time, you can just click this little blue icon here and then open a new window. And what that will do is I'll open up exactly what that routing template looks like. The same goes for a paymaster, retail, owner, and commission. Now, you may not have all of this at your property. Um, However, the setup is there and the flexibility is there if you ever choose to get these modules. The same is for the templates, so the actual folios that show up when a guest checks in, or how many folios. In Senium, we can have multiple folios on one account, and you're able to route them in many different ways. So these are the default folios that actually open when you um, book a reservation or have a retail order. Maybe you have rental, so when you have an owner account, when you deal with commissions, groups, or even a group paymaster, you're able to individually set up folio templates for those different reservations and bookings. Now, when we go down to invoice settlement setup, this is all for accounting. However, based on your currency, this is where you would set up where the rounding precision sits. So in the United States, we try to use the smallest, right? So if you're we have pennies here. Some countries and do not have up to a penny, so you should ground to the smallest currency that you have available. That way, it's the most precise, and that's where you use your rounding there. All this is for invoicing. This is so the correct information shows up on your invoices, and then here you have your invoice reference method and your invoice reference number 2. And your bank account information if you choose to put that there. System job configuration. So synchronization frequency of orders. So basically what this does is this will auto refresh all the open closed orders in the system. Should you not create a new order, what it'll do is it will go ahead and check and see if there's any changes, and it'll automatically update every 10 minutes. And this auto no-show requires night audit here. So what this does is once you run night audit, the rooms that are still in the reserved state that are due to arrive the same day as night audit, what that'll do is that'll allow night audit to push those reservations into no show. There, and then you can bill those accordingly. That is very important here in the United States, as we deal with a lot of chargebacks with credit card merchants, and they would like, I believe it is a requirement to have that no-show charge shown for a chargeback when a guest charged back stating, hey, we never approved these charges. Well, you never showed up to the reservation, therefore you were charged based on our cancellation. So that is very important. So now let's talk about the use availability price check and allocation. What this basically does is when you check this box, this will tell you, or the system, to use availability from within. So from the master property setup, what we can do is you can turn this off, and then this external CIS application ID and external recipient ID, when we turn off use availability, what that will trigger the system to do is use availability from an external source. Now, 9 times out of 10, you're going to utilize the availability within. However, if you do have an external system that you use availability for rooms, then what you would do is you would turn the availability off internally, and you would want the system to pull that availability from somewhere, or it would go to check. That's what this is used for here. Now, when we talk about ERP postings, what this will do is this will tell you that the ERP posting of the revenue will be posted at the checkout state, and the same for the statements or the settlements. It'll be posted at the checkout state. Now, when we're talking about reservations and group paymaster checkouts, these are different triggers on when the posting should occur. So we can have a status at checked out, at final payment or final invoice, at folio with a zero balance after the status is checked out, meaning here we can check out, we can post an ERP posting if they're checked out even with a balance on the account. However, this one, it'll only post when there's a zero balance in the account and after they've been checked out. Similar for group and group paymaster, you have the different options, and that's basically what triggers Night Audit to do. So Night Audit's job is to make sure it utilizes these functions here and follows these rules for your ERP postings. And the rewards program here is if you have different rewards programs, this is going to default by your brand, right? So if you have 5 properties that utilize the same rewards program, then what you can do is select a default rewards program, and then all the rewards program members can utilize those benefits at the multiple properties. So that is what setup shared configuration is. Now, a lot of this you'll see in my next video when we talk about master property setup. So if you are not utilizing multiple properties at this point, this may not be relevant to you. However, if in the future you are going to utilize Cenium at multiple properties and want them to talk to each other, then you would want to consider setting up the shared configuration so you don't run into any problems in the future.